Hello and welcome back to this tutorial on pickups. So there's actually a first part to this that I'll pop on screen now, and that will just get you the basics of being able to pick up the items. So for this second part of the tutorial, what I'm going to do is I've added an inventory down the bottom with, say, 10 items in it, and you can see that I'm highlighting the different slots. And if I pick up some items, you'll see they go into a slot. Pick up something else, and then they're all in their separate slots. And you can see also there's a number which shows that when you're picking up multiple items of the same type, they're stacking. And I can also drop a selected item on the ground, and they should spawn back in. And of course, you can pick them up again. Now, while we're not doing anything special with the items, just dropping them, you could have it that maybe when you interact with one of these slots, it would say add health, if it was a health item, or give you some special stat. So let's look at building this system now, and we're just going to get started with the tutorial. So to get started, we've got our previous setup where we've got our individual items we can pick up. And if you pick it up, it just drops it at the moment. There's no idea of selecting a button to drop it. So we need to look at adding an option to select and drop it. And we'll just start off by setting up those inputs actually, because that's relatively simple and easy. So we go back into input actions that we've done before. We have our interact we added. I'm just going to duplicate that and call this one drop item. And I'm going to duplicate this 2 more times. I'll call this one next item. And one more. And I'm just going to call that previous item. Now you could, in theory, add this as just an items thing where you scroll through it and have like a 2D action, but for speed, I'm just going to do it this way. And then I'm going to go into input, find our IMC default, open that up that we've done before. You see the interact right there. Add 3 more mappings. It won't let me add another one until I select it apparently. So if I add, we'll do drop first. I'll just add the other 2. So previous item. Oops, if I can spell it. Previous item. And next item. And for those, I'm just going to set some keys up. So for drop item, I'm just going to use, say G. I'll add also a button on the controller, which will be my B button. And for the previous items, I'm going to use the arrow keys now. I know that there's going to be a bit of a conflict here. Sorry, I'm going to use previous items, so I'm going to use left for that. But we could just disable input for the player on the keys later on. So if I add another one, and don't know why it does this, and make that left on the D-pad, and just for the next item, we'll open that up. It's opened them all again, which is really irritating. Next item will be right on the keyboard or right on the D-pad. So they should all be set up now, as far as I can tell. Save them, and we'll use those in the character later on. Now, the next thing we need to do is actually go into our blueprints. And what we want to do is make a structure. Now, what the structure is going to allow us to do is store different variables all in the same data object basically, and then we can just take that and send that to our character or anything else that needs it. So we were going to make some widgets as well. So we might need to send that data to the widgets. So what I want to do is right click, select blueprint, and then select from the structure at the bottom. And I'm going to call this s underscore item data, for example. And I'm just going to hit enter and open that up. And the first thing I want to do is in this first slot is look for my base pickup. So if I search for base pickup, and I want a class reference, not the object reference, because we're going to use this to spawn our base pickup in the future. And I'll just call this our actor, even though it's the base pickup. I just know what that is then. And I'm going to add another variable, and I'm going to change this to be an integer, and I'm going to call this amount. And I'm going to also add another variable, and I'm going to set this, to name, and this is going to be our object name. Now, why I'm using this is that I found that you can't really compare actors because they have unique names to them. So I'm going to use this name that we're going to manually set ourselves to actually do that. And finally, what I'm going to add is another variable, and this is going to be a texture 2D. And I'll set that, and this can be our I'll just call this image for now. So this is going to be the image that's shown down at the bottom in the tool, the inventory system. So I'll save that, close it, and we're going to open our base pickup, and we're going to make a new variable, and I'm going to name get our item data structure that we created. So that's our structure, and we compile that, and we'll call this item data so we know what it is. Now, what I want to do is I want to make it visible. So when we have an object, we can define this. And I'm going to leave our actor blank because really we want to have the object fill in that data itself, not manually besetting it. So I'll leave that blank. Amount can also stay at 0 because we're going to set the amount when we put it in our inventory. Really, the only things we want to set here are the name, and this item is our ketchup bottle. I'm going to call that ketchup. And I'm going to change the image as well. So that will be bottle ketchup. And I'm going to compile and save that. Now, like I said, we want this to automatically set at least the actor name. So at our event begin play, when we spawn it in, we want to drag in our item data and go get, and we want to right click on it and go split struct pin. Now, we can ignore the item data. We'll pass everything else back in. So if we do change a value or we have our name set, that information will always be correct. So if I drag out another item data and do item and set item data, what I want to do is just drag that set. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to item data, drag it out, and select s underscore. It's not appearing. Oh, so I want to select make s item data is there at the bottom. Now, What we want to do here is we want to use, like I said, these previously existing bits of the data item. So just drag the item data image to image, the item data name to name, the amount to amount. The only thing we will not do is take the item data out here. We'll look for self, get the reference to self, and then drag out from that and look for class. And we want get class, and we want to plug that into the actor. So that will make the data correct when we start. It'll set itself to be this actor, and it'll take all the other information from the information we set elsewhere. So if I save that, and what we actually need to do is, because we've got these other items, I'm going to right click, and here's our item data. And of course, this is not ketchup, this one's bread. And so we need the bread image as well. And open the next one. This is a pizza, so we'll choose a pizza box, and we'll call this a pizza. Compile and save that. So we are probably still going to be able to make, well, we are going to be able to make other inventory items. It's just we got to now remember just to change those two settings, which is a lot less work than individually setting it every single time. So with that, we basically have the setup we need to start going back into our third person character and changing the existing blueprint code that we have to make our inventory. There is only one other thing we need to do, and that's start to make our icons or our UI elements for the bottom. So let's quickly have a look at doing that now. Now, I'm not going to say this is the best way to do this, but this is the way that I found works for me. So I'm going to right click here and go to user interface, select our widget blueprint, go use widget, and name this WB underscore inventory. And I'm going to open that up. Now the first thing I want to do is just get a canvas. So search for canvas in this palette, drag it down, I've got a canvas panel. What I'm going to do next is look for a size box. I'm going to drag that onto there. Now with this size box, we're currently up in this corner here for a start, and the pivot point is also in the top corner here. So I'm going to change it in anchors. If I select the anchors and select shift and hover over this one that's at the bottom, and I'm going to do the same again, hover over this, but we control this time and click, and that will put our pivot point into the middle, and it'll also put it down the bottom here, which is what I want. Now what I'm going to do is I want to change this position, and I believe I want to change this to -100. That's a bit too high. I'm going to go -50 actually. So it'll just, if you imagine this is the blue line that appears as the screen, the inventory will be down the bottom here. Now I also want to change some values here. Size X is okay, but size Y is at 30. In fact, no, I want to change both of them. So size X is okay for one inventory unit, but we want several. So I'm going to change that to 1,000. And I'm going to change the size Y to be 100. So now we have like a more sensible inventory size down the bottom of our screen. I don't think I want to change anything else there, I believe. So what I want to do next is go and find a border, and I'm just going to drop that in there, and you'll see instantly this is now like a white bar in the background, which is what we want. And I think I want to add one more thing to this. So if I search for wrap box, And I'm just going to add that in the end there. So you've got your canvas panel, then your size box, which I've set, then your border, then your wrap box. Compile and save that, and we've got where we're going to store items in our inventory. But we want to make the individual slot items. Now they're going to be the things, each icon in that white box. So we're going to right click and we're going to look for UI again, user interface. Select the widget blueprint, and we're going to make a user widget again and call this one WB underscore slot. And we're going to open that up. I'm just going to dot this because it's getting a little bit messy. And instead of instead of fill size screen even, I'm going to change this to desired on screen. And hopefully that will mean that when we see this, it will be as it would appear instead of all stretched out. Now, this is where things become a little bit tricky because I want to make another size box. And this is going to be our size box that is set in the override. So I'm going to set the width override and the height override both to 100. Now, this is because that will be our one unit of our inventory, basically, stretching out till we've got all 10 of them. And the next thing I want to do is just grab another border, and I'll drop that in, and instantly that goes white. But I don't want this white. I want this to be slightly off grey, because this is actually going to be the edge border of our basically our slot. So if I just grab another border and add that, you'll see in a second. Now if I select this one, or you can even see it already. So it's set this up so it looks like it's in a picture frame. But I'm going to say this is kind of a little bit wrong because it's much thicker on the left and right than the top or the bottom, and we want that to be the reverse. So if I go in there and set the left to 2, the top to 4, the right to 2, and the bottom to 4. And compile and save that. Is add our overlay. So if I just search for overlay, now what that will help is we can actually attach multiple things as children of the overlay, and also it'll make it so they appear on the top. And in fact, I'm going to make one more change here. I'm going to change the overlay padding to just be 0 as well, because otherwise it's going to be reducing the size, and we don't want that. We want the icon or whatever to be full size. So what we want to then search for is image, and put that onto the overlay. And I'm going to change that to just be called icon instead of image. We'll leave that as is a variable because we want to adjust that later on. And we want to search for text and drag the text in, and that should also be set to a variable. And at the moment, we can't really read it, so I'm going to just change the color to be black. And it's also in the wrong place, so I'm going to select it to be on the right aligned and bottom vertical aligned. I'm also going to change this to say instead of text box just 0, and you can see that that's when we will have our amounts appear. So that's pretty much the it for this. The only thing we need to do is just make another border, and I'm just going to drop this at the bottom here. Just make sure it's at the bottom, so you might find it resists. Oh no, let's put it in the right place. I'm actually going to just change that text block to just say text as well. And I'm just select the border, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this brush color and just set this to blue, and I'll make this semi-transparent by changing the alpha value here. And And I'm going to also select fill horizontally and fill vertically. Now don't worry that this is blue at the moment. It'll become clearer later on why it's like that. So compile and save. I think what we're going to do next is look how we transfer our data between the actual object, the pickup object, and the third person character. So what I'm just going to do is click back on level third person to get back to the main viewport. And we had our BPI interact that we're using for communication between the object and our third person character. If I open that, and we have this remove item that we were using. Now we can just leave that as is. We're going to add a new function and we're going to call this get item data. And in the outputs, I want to click the plus, and then I want to change it from Boolean to our structure. So if I search for s underscore sorry, I've called it item data. I get just getting confused by what I've called it now. Item data, and select that, and we'll call that our item data, and that's all we need for that one for now. Compile that, and we'll add another one, and I'm going to call this get item name. So sometimes we'll just want to find out what the name is and not get the other data. So that's the only reason I'm making this one. Again, on outputs, click the plus, search for name, and we'll may as well call that item name. And lastly, we want to do something that will set the amount of an item. So before we, spawn it in, we know how many items of the same type exist, basically. So if I go add function set amount, and this time we're going to use inputs. So we click on the plus there and find our integer, and we'll just set amount. Okay, now we'll actually implement that. So look for your base pickup again, and we'll select that. And if you remember, our interface is down here. Now for the set amount, what we actually want to do is actually not right click and use implement event. I think if you just double click here, it will create the set amount instead. And what we want to do is we want to just grab a copy of this that we've got here. And actually we want to copy the set as well. And drag that down there. Because what we want to do is set the amount from here. So if I go there and connect that up. Now, this one was just for, at the start, setting the correct actor from the self. So we've already done that. So we just reconnect that actor. And what we're going to do is then break the item data amount and connect this amount to this amount. And that one is done. Now for the other two, all we need to do is double click on them. And what we want to do is just get our item data and drag it over here and select get. And this one's actually our get item name. So what I want to do is go and split the structure, drag that over there. And then all I need to do is take this item data name and plug it into item name, because that is in fact the name that we want to send. So we go compile, and that one's done. And finally, what I'm going to quickly do is just go into get item data. And all I need to do is get our item data and pull it out, do get, and connect that up. Because basically we want to send these bits of data over to our third person character. So let's look how that all gets wired in now. So if we click on our BP third person character, we had our old logic when we interacted. What we're going to do is we're going to actually clear this out a little bit and re-implement it in a slightly different way, because we don't want to spawn the actor or do anything like that when we interact with it. We want to actually just have it so we pick up our actor, and then this spawn actor will be used later on when we put it back down. And also we want to get all that information from our interface that we just made and use that to populate basically an array. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an array of the structure we created, and I'm also going to make a single variable object just to store it temporarily before I put it into the array. And we're going to make another couple of variables as well, just so we can keep tabs on what we're doing with this object. So we'll look at setting that up right now. So what I'm going to do to begin with is I'm just going to actually, before I make those variables, let's just delete everything we made here from last time, because we want to change it. And anything else? No, that should be fine. So we still got our logic. When we are over on object, we will go into this loop and check if it's got the interface and do something with it. The reason I want to get rid of it is that I want to also delete this pickup or change its type. And if we leave it as it is, it will just moan when we recompile. So I'm going to right click here and look for our s underscore item data and select that. And I'm just going to add another new variable, and just to confuse matters, I'm going to call this item data. And that's going to store our inventory items. So what I'm going to do is just change this array to array. So if I click on the single drop down and change it to an array, and I'm going to compile that, and I've got no errors, which is good. And I'm going to actually make a new variable, and I think I'm going to call this, I'm going to make it Boolean, I'm going to make it a single again. I think I'm going to call this add item. Now, why I've done that is that what I want to do is when I put this in to the variable, the actual pickup item, I also want to flag it that it should be added, so we can then do a check on it later on to make sure that it's valid. Now, I'm not going to work on this yet. What I want to do is is there a begin already here? No. I want to right click, search for begin, event begin play, and what I want to do is just do some setup here. And the first thing I'm going to do is just get our item data. So drag out that one, do a get item data, drag out from that, type clear, and then connect that up. Now, the reason I'm doing that is I was having some issues where I think something was remaining in memory, and I'd start this again and it wouldn't be working properly. So if we just clear this array, then we can be guaranteed that like the item data is valid and not full of nonsense data. And what I also want to do is drag out and search for create widget. And I'm going to select that, and I'm going to change the class to our WB inventory. And I'm going to make this a variable that we can always use. So I'm going to drag out from the return value, select promote to variable, and rename this inventory widget or something like that. Compile that as well. And what I also want to do is basically make it so, well, this displays and also we have, oh, well, that's peering over there. Go away. And we have our actual widget displayed on the screen. So let's add that now. So um, if, well, you can do it two different ways, but we can either drag this in or we've got the return value already here. So we're just going to search for add to viewport. And yeah, that should be the correct one. And actually, what I want to do is I've just need to add one more variable, and let's make it an integer, and we'll call this our inventory size. Yep. And I'm going to compile that, and I'm going to set this to 10 because we have 10 slots that we're basically using. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag out our inventory size, get inventory size. And what I'm going to do is also I'm going to bring in the item data, and I'm going to do a get, and I'm going to do a resize, and I'm going to set the inventory size as that I want to resize it to, and connect that up. So just when we start, we'll fill in basically blank slots, but we need to work on the inventory a little bit more to get that to work. But we're going to leave that for the moment. So what we're going to do, we're going to work on our interact. Now we've destroyed most of it. And we're going to stay with this true because we want to implement this interface. And we want to drag out from the array element and search for our get item data. And we'll select that. And we'll connect that to the true. And we want to grab this item data and just break it. And basically, I want to recombine this, but also I want to add to the amount. So what we can do is if we just grab our pickup and drop that there and go set. And if I drag out from the pickup and look for make, now everything can be connected apart from the amount. And in the amount, I'm just going to set the amount to 1. Now, the reason I'm going to do this is that every time we have a new object, we want to set the amount to 1. The only case where we don't want this, well, the cases where we don't want this is where we've got existing amount set. So we need to create a branch. So let's look at that now. So all we need to do is get our amount, make sure it's equal to 0, right? Sorry, drag out here from the return value, search for a branch, and then connect it up. So we want to connect this up. So this is our start of our branch. We want to connect the true there to set the pickup. But obviously we do want to get the pickup data as it is and just grab it. So we'll just go from item data and we'll search for S. No, we don't even need to do that. What we need to do is just get a copy of this set and make that false. Connect up the item data because we already have it. And then at the end, what we want to do is we want to drag out our add item bool that we made and do set and connect both of these up and make sure that add item is selected. And remember that we had our function before on our object to get rid of it once we picked it up. So let's drag out from this array element and search for our remove item, I think it was called. Yeah, there we go, remove item. And we'll connect that up. And We also want to reconnect this to our break and just clear that up a little bit. So that, I think, should be that one. Now, I think what we need to do before we get started on more of this logic is just set up a bit more of the inventory system. So if I go back to my, it's actually on the top. If I just find the WB inventory and open that up, and what I want to do is get the inventory and basically make this into a function we can use. Now let's just check everything here set up correctly. So if I just check wrapbox, no. What I'm going to do is just make sure this is named wrapbox and make this a variable also and compile it. And we're going to go into our graph and we're going to make a new function called get inventory. And what we want to do is we want to grab this wrap box, use get, because that's the only option, and do clear and select clear children. And you'll see why in a second if I reconnect that. Now, what we need to do is get our data from our player when this is called and actually set up our inventory. The way we're just going to do that is right click here and search for get player and set pawn. And this should get the right pawn because of the player index. So we're going to drag out from here and do a cast to third person character, make sure it's our character. And we're just going to drag that connection from the clear children into that. And what we're going to do then is we're just going to drag out from that third person character as third person character and search for S item. Sorry, it's not called that now. It's called item data, I believe. And we're going to get our item data. And so we're going to just select this and do a for each loop. And I've just thought what we also need to make sure is that there's another variable I want to use later on. So I'm going to quickly create that and you'll see how it links later on. If I just go back to third person character quickly, it's an integer as well. And I'm just going to call this selected item. Now that will help us when we're doing our overlay, hovering, and actually selecting the object later on. So quickly go back into our inventory, drag out and find that selected item and get that as well. Now, like I said, we want to make our widget slot. So what I'm going to quickly do is just go into our WB slot and we should be able to go into the graph here as well. And we should have our text and our icon. And we also should have another one, which doesn't seem to be there. Let's just check that. Oh, it's our border. Yeah, so if I just got to make this a variable as well, and I'll call this our overlay. We'll do. And compile that. And now if we go into the graph, we should see those ones. And I'm going to make a new one. And this is going to be, again, our S underscore item data. And just rename that item data. And also, we'll make another one and we'll make that a bool and we'll call that something like active. I don't search, I just want to rename it active. And we'll come back to that in a minute, but we're just going to go back to our inventory and with those new variables that we just created, what we want to do is search for create and select create widget, and we want to select our slot. So our WB slot, and actually I'm just going to make sure that the item data is available by clicking on the eye. And we also want to click down here where it says expose on spawn, compile and save. And if we go back to our inventory, we should have access to this item data. And all I'm going to do is drag from our array element into our item data. And so now we're creating this slot, but we need to still fill it with a little bit more information. So what I want to do is I want to find out if the selected item that we have, one that's going to be active, is the same as our array index, and put the overlay on that we made. So if I just drag out from the array index and do equals, and I'm going to connect the selected item into that, and I'm going to make a branch. So if I drag from the return value, make a branch, and what I'm going to do is just put it there and connect that up. And what I'm going to do is just drag from the return value of our create WB slot and search for active. And I'm going to do set active, and I'm going to just do that twice. So I'm making a set active. And clearly, if I've got a true here, I want to make that active. And if it's false, I want to leave that as deactive. Now, the only other thing I want to do is grab this wrap box. If I drag this out and search for add children and add child, even add child to wrap box, and just connect that up. And the content needs to be taken from this return value. And we compile that and save that. That one's now done. Now what we need to do is work on our WB slot a little bit. So if I click here, and what we want to do is when we construct our icon, we need to set the data. So we've got our item data that we've now set via what we did over here. So if we just drag that in, I thought I did it, but it's disappeared. I'll do a get. And I'm just going to split this because we're going to use the different bits from here. What we're not going to use, I think, the actor we won't use. Actually, we're not going to use the name either. We could if we wanted to. Now, what we need to do is set our image. We'll do that first. So we've called that icon. So if we drag out our icon and do get, and drag this out and do set texture. Sorry, set brush from texture even. And we'll connect that up. And we'll connect our data image 2D into there, and that should just work. And we also want to set our text. So our text, we do a get text, and we're going to do set text. And then we should just be able to give it the name. It will change it. That's fine. It's just because this is name and this is text. I need to convert it. So we'll select that. Now we're going to want to hide certain information given how things have been set up. So the first thing we want to do is if our text is below 1, or sorry, 1 and below, there's no point in displaying it because you've only got one item in the inventory. If it's bigger than that, then it should display. So given that we have this item data amount, we are actually going to use it. If I drag out from here and look for greater than, and we'll change that from 0 to 1. and we'll drag out from the return and make a branch. And we'll just connect that up. And then with the branch, what we want to do is we want to set the visibility if it's over 1. So for our text, we drag that out again. If we drag off it and look for set visibility, and we'll leave this set to visible, and we'll drag that there. And we'll just copy paste both these and connect it to false. But obviously you want it to be hidden. And that's that. Now, also, we made this active ball, and we want to get that because we're, again, setting it in our inventory. And if I drag out and look for a branch and make a new branch, connect these two in, and we're essentially going to do the same again, but this time for our overlay. So we drag out our overlay, and then we can just drag it over these two, copy paste them because they're set the same. And if it's active is true, visible again. And if the active is false, it's hidden. And I'll just make a new copy of that overlay, and we'll connect both of those up. So essentially, we're basically, if the number is less than or equal to 1, we are not showing text. If it's greater than, then we will show the text. And if this is an active overlay, like you've selected this in your inventory, we will make it visible. And if it's not, it won't have the overlay showing. And we'll compile that and save that. So I promise we're getting fairly close to the end now. What we need to do is now go back to our third person character. And the first thing I'm going to do, just so we don't have to do it later on, is just grab our inventory widget and do get. And from this, we just need to search for get inventory. And all that will mean is that the inventory will be created when we start. And if we quickly just check that bit's working. There we go. For some reason, I'm getting more boxes than I thought, but we'll look into that in a bit. So let's continue for now, and we'll try and clean that up later on. So what we have is our setup for when we add the item, and that's in our loop when we press interact. And what we want to do is do some stuff when it's complete. And essentially what we want to do is get our item data and create a new for each loop. Now we're going to go from completed into our new for each loop. And what this essentially is going to do is, because we've created our inventory of 10, and now we populated it with blank data, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the correct data is filled in. So what we want to do next is get our as item, if you just drop it there, and we want to drag out and do a branch. So essentially we're looping over everything, but we only want to ever add the new item. We don't want to populate it all with duplicate copies. And obviously we if we have a certain amount, we only want to add the amount correctly, if that makes sense. So the first check we want to do is we want to check the names of each of the items, the ones that we've got in our array currently, and the ones for the actual object that we're setting. So if I drag out from the create element, and what I'm going to do is just break SIM data, and I'm going to also get our singular pickup and do get pickup, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to split. No, I'm not going to split the structure. I'm going to break it. So yeah, if I drag it out, do break. Now, we have our name here and our name here. So what I want to do is just get the name and do equals and plug in the name from the bottom and make this a new branch. And connect that from the tree. Now, actually, I do want to do another check. I just want to do the safety check. So what I want to do is make sure that we don't stack, say, any more than 10 items in our inventory at a time. So what we want to do is drag out from our amount and do add, and from the amount for our item, and connect that up. And we drag out from that and do less than or equal to. And in here, I'm just going to type 10. So we can only stack 10 items, essentially. Then what I can do is I can then drag out from this and do an and. And what we're going to do is just connect that to the bottom and I'm going to replace that branch there. So we're actually doing two checks, one against the name and one that we don't have more than 10 items. And that'll just help us a little bit keeping track of things and not overloading the inventory, basically. What I'm going to do is I am just going to grab this pickup and copy that and put it here. And I'm going to split the structure this time. And what I'm going to do is also grab the item data array. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and do a set array element. And I'm going to take the array index and plug that in. And I'm also going to drag from this item and do a make and do make s items. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the actor, the name, and the image from there. And where we did this addition to check for how many items are in our slot, we are going to use that as our amount. And we need to connect the true to our set array element. Now for the false, we're just going to do a quick check. So we'll do a branch. And what we're just going to check is that our amount from our array data is 0. So we do equal, and we'll just check it's 0. Now, why are we doing this? Well, it's just in case, it's so we know that we've got an empty slot, basically, we can put things in. And what I'm going to do is just, I'm going to copy the item data here and this set array element. I'm going to copy this down here. And I'm just going to connect that in a similar fashion with the true that we just made. Now here for the item, we're just going to get our pickup item and connect that because we're just going to use our current data that we made up here where I set this to amount to 1, or it's using the correct amount anyway. And all we're going to do is take that array index and put that in there. And I think that bit is that bit. Now, the last thing we need to do is make sure that we know that we've added the item and also that we have triggered the refresh that we set up here, our get inventory. So let's just do that now quickly. So if we just, in fact, let's just go up here and copy our get inventory and our widget. So there's our inventory widget, there's our get inventory, connect that up. And finally, just go to add item, do a set, drop it on. By default, should be false. And so that should be our complete logic. Compile and save. So let's just quickly test that's working. I need to look into why that's happening, but let's just click here. I pick it up and it's meant to be displaying the pizza box, but it's too small, and the bread and the ketchup. Now, yeah, thinking about it, this might be why we're getting some oddness with the inventory. So let's look at that. If I go back to the WB slots, and I think what might be happening, at least in part, if I go back to the designer and look for icon where we have our image, yeah, if we zoom in, we can see this is wrong. And we did fix it early with the text, I think, or the overlay. If we just click fill horizontally and fill vertically, that should at least fix that. I'm not sure it's going to fix our other problem. Yeah, so that works, and you can see that here that the down the bottom even on the overlay is blue for the pizza box because it was the first item we picked up, and we haven't set up being able to move through our inventory yet, so it's just highlighted, and the ketchup bottle's in the next slot and the bread is in the next slot. Cool, so at least that's fixed. I'm just going to quickly do a quick break here just to find out why our inventory is looking a bit strange, and then we'll continue. Yes, so I did have a bit of a look into why the inventory is doing this. Now, I think it's something to do with the padding, and I haven't been able quite to get bottom of it. It was working in my previous attempt. So what I would suggest just for now, as a quick fix, so we can continue, is we just go back to our size box, and where we typed in our size X as 1,000, we're just going to make that 1,000 and let's say 8. We compile that and just run it. You'll see there's a bit of a border on either side. It shouldn't be there, but at least it looks mostly correct now. Yeah, I think it's just the padding, like I said, and I need to investigate a bit more later on. But this'll do for now. You know, it gets everybody going again. So what I'm going to do now is actually make it so once we pick up the item, um, you'll be able to select the right one and put it down again, and also that you'll be able to move the selection and choose which one you want to remove from your inventory. So that's just going to be done back in the third person character. Yeah, so if I drag down here somewhere and select with the right click IA underscore drop item, we want to expand that and we want to go off started. Now what I need to do is I need to get our item data and just drag that there and do get item data. And I'm going to just drag off that and do a get a copy. And the copy I want to get is whatever our selected item is. You'll see how this is this works in a minute, but if I just drag it out, right click here and do split. And what I'm going to do first is just grab this actor and do spawn actor from class. Now that should spawn the correct actor, and if I connect this started to the spawn actor, that should do that. Now it's going to complain if I don't give it spawn transform, so I'm going to just right click and do get actor transform, and this is just going to use the player's transform, so it's just going to spawn where the player is. And that bit is that bit. What I need to do next is I need to drag out from here and do does object implement interface again. We used that previously and up there when we set up our object pickup. So if I just change that back to our BPI underscore interact, and I'm just going to go from the return value and do branch. Just make sure that it has the interface, which it always should do, but it's worth checking. And we're just going to drag from the return value such a set amount, and we should find the actual interface. So there we go. And we'll connect that up. And we'll connect the amount here to the amount on the set amount. And what we're going to do is just go at item data and drag it out and do a get. And just to clear it from our array, what we're going to do is just do a set array element. And we're going to connect that to our set amount. And we're going to get our selected item. Now, normally you connect an item here, but if we don't, it'll clear out the item but leave our slot basically empty. And then what I'm just going to do is I'm going to get our widget again. So inventory widget. And we're just going to do what we did here. We're just going to do a get inventory. And that just makes sure that now we've set that empty, it just shows empty on the UI element. And that should be it. So let's just try that one as well. Quickly, if I go there, grab something, press R key to drop it, you should see it floating in the air and it will be out of the inventory. Perfect. So how do we then move across the inventory? Well, luckily that isn't too bad because we've done all the heavy lifting already. So if we go here and we're going to create an IA underscore and let's put up a next item, create that. And we'll open that up. You know, while we're here, we'll just do an IA underscore previous item. And we'll do the same there, just so we can quickly do this. So what I need to do next is, for the next item in our inventory, we want to grab our selected item, do a set. And to work this out, all we need to do is get them started and plug it in there. And then the quickest way to do this one is just to get the selected item itself again. If I just get a bit closer so it might be not as blurry. And I drag out and I do a plus to add. And I want to just add 1. And what I want to do is just go our inventory size. And what I want to do is just grab this and select the percent sign. And we should select this one called percent integer. And this should say modulo when you hover over it. And I'm just going to connect the inventory size and then connect that up. Now, we need to do something similar, although not the same, for this, our previous item. So our previous item, basically we want to loop around back to the start. So what I want to do is I want to, again, get our selected item. And I want to do a subtract. And I want to make sure this is 1. So selected item -1. And then what I want to do is drag from the return value here and do a greater than or equal to. And we want to leave that to 0. And we'll drag out from the return value of that and make a branch. And if we dragged and started into the branch, what we want to do then is get our selected item again. In fact, we want to set it. So set selected item, and we want to just drag there and connect that up, and then connect from this subtraction we made into the selected item. But what we want to do is just have another set down here and connect that up. But this time, we don't want it to be our selected item. We want it to be our inventory size. And we want to drag out and do subtract again and make that 1 and connect that up. Now the only thing that we need to do is what we've done everywhere else. If we just take a copy of this inventory widget and get inventory and connect that up. So if we drag those two over here, we need to do it once we've set it from next item and once we've set it from the previous items, whichever path we're coming through this branch. So that's 3 connections there. Compile and save, and that should be it. So if we just go to our actual level, now we should be able to move backwards and forwards through our inventory. And if we pick up items like so, and then we want to specifically drop an item, say the bread, we can just press that button. And there's the bread. The only thing I haven't tested there is just the stacking. So if I just let me make a couple more ketchups, press play, and let's just go get the ketchup. And oh, that wasn't what I was expecting. it looks like I've got the name instead of the amount. So if I just go back to slot, oh yeah, I've just connected the wrong one when I did it. Sorry about that. So if I delete that and just put that in there, yeah, that's right. Compile and just go back to level. Hopefully that's the only issue there. Oh, okay. So for some reason it is displaying the right amount, but it's also adding extra ketchup bottles. That is not what we want. Uh, I think that's just about our activation. So let me just check that. If we escape and then just go back into third person character and just scroll up to see our logic. Oh, I've just forgotten to connect this. So easy mistake to make. I meant to attach those. In fact, if they just move that up there, make it more obvious. Now, what happened was when we go through and we add an item, we set the array element, we update the inventory, and we turn off add item, which is cool. But also, it was finding that we'd already had previous items adding to the amount, and then it was not doing this bit of logic, so it was actually getting added twice. So if I just drag that to get inventory as well, so that's taking the route to get inventory from both lines of code, compile it, and this time we should not have that same stacking issue. So yeah, look, there we go. Get the third bottle of ketchup, get pizza, get the bread, and we can drop those items as we see fit. And even the ketchup. And if I pick up the ketchup again, sorry, I got picked up the pizza box for some reason. There we go. You can see that it's actually correctly labeled it 3 because we picked up 3 previously. And there we go. So sorry this has been a bit of a long and windy one. Hopefully you managed to follow it and keep up. And I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching.